Thank you, Chair Parent, and thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity. I actually wanted to digress for 1 second, and I wanted to give a big shout out to the fire department, our public health department, our animal care and control department, ISD, sheriff, and the Office of Emergency Management. Big old fire that started on Saturday afternoon, the post fire, and your county hard at work. Tony promised me he would have it out by today so that we could be here for this event. So just a round of applause to all of our county partners for good hard work on the post fire. And it's kind of a segue into my portion of this presentation, which is the safety and security aspect moving into LA County on the global stage. One little thing I wanted to add in on the previous presentations is we also get to have a Super Bowl crammed into the middle of all of this. So less than a year after the World Cup, SoFi Stadium will also be hosting the 2027 Super Bowl. So we get to have the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics in back-to-back years. And so safety and security for spectator events is really the background dancer. And it's critical for all of us to make sure that we come, prepared for all of the different facets that we'll be trying to manage through. But really, our guiding principle is to make sure that the safety and security aspect doesn't detract from what the purpose of the events are. And so it's a big all hands on deck approach. This is the earliest national special security event designation from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that's ever been done. So in January of this year, the Secretary of Homeland Security designated the Olympics that special event. And really what that does is it initiates a federal, state, and local, along with LA28 partners, all hands on deck planning and preparedness process. And what's great about the Olympics being in 2028 and then some of these other events coming beforehand and this early designation is it's already brought all of us to the table from all of these different vantage points, federal, state, and local, to really start preparing. And that preparation includes planning, thinking through consequence and crisis management issues, and looking at the myriad of hazards and risks that we face throughout Los Angeles County and the region to make sure that all of these events are happy and productive and amazing events and that aren't detracted by safety and security issues. The last thing I just wanted to mention is that we already are starting from a really strong place in Los Angeles County. And I think that's a massive point that not every jurisdiction across our globe that offers these types of international events start from. And so we already have a really robust system in place at the county, at the state level, and at our federal level from which we're working on. So I think it's an important thing for all of us to recognize is that we're not starting from scratch with any of the safety and security component of this, that we have a well-exercised, well-experienced team of professionals that are gonna work through what are gonna be 4 years of massive lifts to make sure that this is the safest and most secure set of global events that we can provide. I'm gonna transition really quick to John's introduction, and then we'll be going through some moderated questions. So John, take it away.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, good morning. So as you know, my branch in the CEO's office has been tasked with coordinating and leading the county's effort around the Olympics. And I just kind of want to go back and rehash the comments we heard from Supervisor Solis and CEO Vezia Davenport that, this is a significant event on scale and size. And so it's been said that the Olympics will be the equivalent of like 7 Super Bowls a day. And so if you can just, put that in perspective there. But then when we overlay it with our daily operations of our 38 county departments, our 88 incorporated cities, and when you think about the 88 incorporated cities, many of them are contract cities that we provide services for on a daily basis. So there's another level of complexity there. And then when you add, don't forget about our unincorporated areas where we service over 1 million people. We have a real recipe here, or should I say we have I would say more of a complex matrix that is an opportunity that we really need to focus with planning, collaboration, and working together to bring this, a successful event. Now, my team organized about a year ago and started working on this effort. And as Fezia mentioned this morning, she mentioned about the 5 areas of focus for us. And so the 5 areas of focus were also strategically picked because they align with the LA and City of LA and the games agreement between the City of LA and LA 28. And so, as she mentioned, equitable access, and I'm not gonna go over them in detail again, but I just want to point out the lead departments for the county that are handling those. So under equitable access, we have Parks and Recreation and Arts and Culture that are leading that effort. Under economic empowerment, we have the Department of Economic Opportunity and Internal Services Department leading that effort for us. Under operations and logistic coordination, we have Internal Services and Public Works leading for us. Public safety, we have Sheriff, Fire, and CEO Emergency Management. And then lasting impact, we have our Chief Sustainability Officer. And so while these departments are leading, they also are going to be assembling, subcommittee working groups to get collective input, and so that departments that have ideas or innovations that they want to bring to the table will also be able to partake in meetings and working with the lead departments for those groups. I do want to, just mention one more thing that, my department recognizes that our county departments are the subject matter experts. And when I mentioned the scale of their day-to-day activities, they know how to deliver and provide the services, in first-class manner. And so the challenge for my department is identifying synergies and bringing together the parties to maximize the return on the work that's being done so that we can ensure a positive impact for the residents of LA and LA County. And so that's where we're really focused on for my team. So we know how to do the job on a day-to-day basis, but now when we add the complexity of these events, how do we make sure that we are being as efficient as possible? And, Kevin mentioned the Super Bowl being brought in, but also before the Super Bowl in 2026, we have the NBA All-Star Game at the new Intuit Dome. We also have the Women's US Opens Championship in 2026. So we have a lot of activity happening. And from my perspective, this effort of collaboration, working with the municipalities, working with all the departments, LA 28, as well as Metro, it's an opportunity for us to take this entertainment and sports activities that seem to be, a commonplace for LA. We got the infrastructure here, we have the weather, we've got the tourist venues. This is an opportunity really for this to be an economic engine for the region. And so with these, I'll call them warm-up events with the All-Star Game and the championship golf, these are opportunities for us to start to perfect some of our efforts and pilot initiatives to really put them to work now, because once we get to the Olympics in 28, businesses already have to be ramped up. Capacity has to already be there. And so how do we start working on that now? And so those are the synergies and the efforts that, from a coordination standpoint, that my office is really working hard to lead. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. Super happy to be here on behalf of the Department of Economic Opportunity to talk about LA 28 and LA on the world stage. Supervisor Solis, CEO Davenport, and Susan Goldsmith, they embodied a lot of what I'm hoping to say today, and there's a lot of alignment there already. We know that the Olympics are ways for us to build a legacy here in LA County, for us to ignite civic pride. Those are things that we know we'll build before the Olympics, during the Olympics, and after the Olympics, but there's sometimes a debate about the economic potential from Olympics. We know that the years leading up to an Olympics and the year of, I think the stat that I found was a 3 to 4% boost to GDP per capita in those years, but the long-term economic impact and potential has varied at Olympics over the time. So one of the things that we're thinking about as the county's economic development agency is how do we build on that Olympic legacy, think about civic pride, but also make sure that as we're leading and preparing, that this isn't a one-time economic shock to the LA County economy, but we start to use the Olympics as a stimulus for our economy, that we think about this an event as something to drive some of the ambitious goals that we want to achieve in creating a more equitable economy and driving more inclusive and sustainable growth generally. So that's sort of the frame in which the Department of Economic Opportunity is thinking about the Olympics. We are heading up, as John mentioned, the economic empowerment sort of work with ISD for the Olympics. We're also serving on LA 28's Community Business and Procurement Committee, one of their 3 main committees focused on setting really those tangible targets that our keynote mentioned, and making sure that they're ambitious and not just sort of no harm. At least that's how the department, and I know the county perceives that. I did want to take a moment to talk a little bit about our hope for what that could mean, and also some of the activities that we're also already engaged in thinking about LA 28. And one thing I did just want to reinforce is that in addition to the Olympics and the Paralympics and all of the events that John mentioned, we have more sports teams than almost any other city or county in the country. So outside of these just major events that we're excited about and going to help put us on the world stage over and over and over again, we're on the world stage every day as like best-in-class teams play across almost every sport. So we really think about ourselves as a sports entertainment capital, and how do we continue to sort of cement that as we are a capital nationally and globally. Okay, but some of the things that we're thinking about in terms of the Olympics, like what would it mean for us to really focus on economic empowerment and see that long-term economic impact in a positive direction that isn't just that singular shock. One area is in youth development. You've seen there's a lot of commitments already made by LA 28 and LA City for youth sports, like hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be going in to the local community to support sports efforts. But one of the things that we're also thinking about is how do we support our emerging workforce, our young adult workforce. And so connecting young workers, teenagers and beyond to the Olympics, and helping them see sports entertainment as an industry of focus for them. Local and targeted worker hire is key for us as well, making sure that as dollars come in for the Olympics, and we know that there will be many, that they're reinvested right back here in our communities. So making sure that we're not just trying to match people to short-term seasonal jobs when the Olympics comes, but really preparing people now, helping them see career pathways beyond the Olympics. So that might be the sports and entertainment sector. That also is, with our various labor unions and partners, and many other sectors that relate to the Olympics. We talked a little bit before today around supplier diversity as well. So making sure that our local small business enterprises, our minority and women-owned businesses have a crack at all of the investment that's coming in. So the way we see that is you have to be inspiring entrepreneurship. This is a place of innovation here in LA County. So how are we getting folks to start their businesses now with a 4-year lead time, and also building the capacity of the hundreds of thousands of businesses that are already out there. So getting them certified, supporting them and getting awards, connecting them to vendors who we know are going to be here at the Olympics right now. There's a lot of efforts underway, and I'll share some of those. You heard our keynote also talk about placemaking. So we're thinking global, but also local. How do we make sure that we are highlighting county assets, working with our cities and fellow jurisdictions to amplify their commercial corridors, and working with arts and parks, and making sure that we are not, the events themselves are not just the destination, but all of the amazing assets of LA County are a destination. And then a couple of others that I think are important to mention are, I mentioned the sports entertainment sort of capital, supporting industry cluster work, but also making sure that folks can participate. So as an economic development department, our customers are workers and businesses, but also communities. So thinking about how do we make tech and connectivity and transit all all work so that folks can not only participate in the actual events and making those sure there's like affordable access for folks to engage in the events, but also that they can, be part of all of the excitement that surrounds the Olympics. And then finally, I know many of my colleagues already mentioned this too, the social infrastructure is so important, affordability, employment, reducing disproportionality so that there's equity in the way that we all engage in the games. So these are component parts that we think of when we think about economic empowerment. And there's a lot underway now. I'll briefly go into it because I'm sure there'll be some of the questions that we talk about, but we're thinking about areas of capacity building, like I mentioned, and scale, goal setting. So we're really excited to work with John and the CEO's office, as well as our LA28 colleagues to set those ambitious targets. That's something we're actively working on now through our committees and through some economic impact studies, thanks to the Board of Supervisors' inspiration. We're setting goals among the county ourselves in anticipation. So many of us in this room are part of Infrastructure LA and signed the Equity and Infrastructure Project Pledge. That's money coming in through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. But we have to do some of the same things that we have to do in terms of the Olympics in order to ensure community benefit. That means getting folks certified. So we committed to tripling the number of certified businesses here and are working on reciprocity together with our partners at LA City and Metro and LAWA and the state and beyond. We're working with internal services on equity and county contracting. We need to make sure that our nonprofits and our small businesses not only know that we buy what they sell, whether it's goods or services, but they have a crack at the $6 to $8 billion of county procurement and even more across our partners. DEO is also making sure that folks have the capacity to get certified because we need the numbers, but we also need them to be successful in getting those awards. And that's our way to sort of build this relationship and then translate that relationship to the Olympics and other major events. So we are also doing things like starting a cash advance pilot. We are creating a revolving loan funds. We're trying to make it easier for our local small business enterprises to engage with us.
Kelly.
And you're gonna stop me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Can we go to Kristen also for some remarks?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. And thank you so much for inviting me to participate on this panel. Thank you so much already to Kevin, John, and Kelly, and of course to the Commission for having us and having this great event. And as Kelly noted, I think so many of the remarks already this morning by the supervisor, the CEO, and the colleagues at Deloitte have really lifted up many of the themes that I think you'll continue to hear today from us and from LA28. So just briefly to talk through some of what we've been up to, and I do have a couple of slides, and I don't know if you have it, but I think there might even be a slide before that one. It's just a pretty picture, but I was going to use it to talk a little bit about the landscape, because even today's event, the title of it, us being on the world stage, at least from my point of view as a performer and someone who always carries the flag for arts and culture, is a nod to the stage. And so thinking about my job in many ways is to think about the role of arts, culture, and creativity all throughout LA County. And so as the Department of Arts and Culture, we are both focused on a sector, so the sector of arts, culture, and creativity, arts and creative economy in LA, but then also a theory of change, that by supporting that sector, by ensuring cultural infrastructure and creating programs and initiatives, that we can then have more access for our communities and that we can lean into the multiple benefits of arts and culture. It is absolutely a huge economic driver, as you heard Kelly, including sports and entertainment, and there's the whole sort of arts and creative economy, which is a huge part of both Los Angeles County's economy, but also the state of California. Pre-COVID, it was about $200 billion sort of annual output is how folks were looking at it. And so really thinking about what all that activity is, but we also know arts and culture has demonstrated positive impact across health for us as individuals, as well as outcomes for communities, education, youth development, and so many other things. Placemaking, which if I get to it, I'll say a little bit word about that too. But all those kind of major components my colleagues around the world, especially the deputy mayor for culture and or arts and cultural industries in London, call arts and culture the golden thread because it really weaves across policy areas in building something positive that cities, counties, and governments should want to do. Okay, so with that, the opening slide was really just to highlight, though, that we already are thought of as the creative capital of the world, building on the sports piece, which is just growing exponentially and is phenomenal. Arts, culture, and entertainment is huge. I believe we have an opportunity to reimagine what it means to be the creative capital of the world, to ensure we have an industry, but also a community all the way across Los Angeles that is thriving, that's robust, that's inclusive and accessible. And so as we build on that, how are we thinking about the role of the Olympic and Paralympic Games? And we can go now to the next slide. So as you've heard from many others, we too are thinking about this really as a legacy opportunity rather than events, which really you think of as something temporal, ephemeral, right? Events come, events go. And a lot of activity goes as they come, and then it kind of comes down. And so we know that's going to happen. There's going to also be participation up and then participation back down. So how do we think about this as a lever for things that are already strategic priorities? How do we think of this as an opportunity? So we see this in the role of arts and culture specifically as an opportunity to uplift the diversity of Los Angeles County as we welcome the world, and that's across race, ethnicity, cultural forms, disability inclusion. There's going to be so many opportunities to think about how we have such global diversity already here. But we're also thinking about how we will strengthen the arts sector and cultural infrastructure, as we might call it, and that could be marketing infrastructure. It doesn't have to just be buildings, right? Programs, initiatives. We're also thinking about what is the legacy, as we've heard a lot today, for underserved communities. And I'll just say, when I first arrived, I was first actually appointed as the executive director of the LA County Arts Commission. We still have a phenomenal arts commission with appointees from the Board of Supervisors, but then the county created the first ever department. But when I first arrived in and then I was reappointed as director of that. But in 2018, when I first got here, a supervisor held a reception for me and then opened it up and said, any of the artists, this was actually in South LA, any of the artists want to, ask, or attendees want to ask Kristen any questions. And one of the questions I got was, Los Angeles was just awarded the bid for the 2028 Olympic Games. And we want to know, what are you going to do to ensure that our communities are involved and engaged this time? So I share that to say, no matter where we sit or what policy area we're in, it's really very real. And I hold us of a lot of accountability of utilizing, even through arts and culture. That's going to be economic opportunities for artists. That's going to be arts organizations. That's going to be access and engagement for youth, for communities. And that's going to be a way to drive civic pride and belonging. So how are we going to ensure that we prioritize those communities? I have basically one more slide that I want to show, which is moving from some of the legacy opportunities and how we think about that in the arts to, the one right before that with the bullets, highlighting just some of the various things we've been doing. We've been doing a number of things, but I really want to highlight what we're doing now in 2024 and the lead up to now is we were able to have a leadership exchange with Paris. Because how many of you think about arts and culture when you think about the Olympic or Paralympic Games? That's what I grew up loving the games, watching it on TV every time it was on, glued to it, arts. I was like, other than the opening ceremony, I don't remember any arts. Well, I'm hoping we can change that because arts and culture has actually long been a part of the games for many, many, many years. And so uplifting arts and culture, we said, but why do we have to reinvent the wheel? We don't know how to do this. Paris. So since LA and Paris both had the games at the same time, we've been doing a leadership exchange with Paris. And through the Board of Supervisors authorizing us, we've entered into a historic MOU for cultural cooperation with the City of LA, County of LA, City of Paris, and the county or region of Saint-Saint-Denis. And so what we're doing is right now some LA-Paris Exchange artistic collaboration projects here and Paris in 2024 that will serve as test events and test concepts as we continue to grow this work. And we're going to be convening the nonprofits in the arts and culture field this summer and fall as we think about that significant role of collaboration. So those are just some of the things we're working on right now, in addition to just continuing to support the sector coming out of the recovery of the pandemic and all those good things. I'll pause there so we can keep the conversation going.
Thanks, Kristen. So I think everyone can see that the county has its sleeves rolled up. There's already a lot of activity that's underway. So to balance two things, one, to have a little bit of a Q&A part, we want to cut to one last question, and then that will provide us some time for question and answers from the audience. And so if you could provide the one kind of major characteristic or topic that you would want everyone to walk away with, the thing that's going to be in the front of their mind when they walk away with, and we'll just go down the line. So I'll start with, from the security and public safety component, is the one thing I would really just put the fine point on is that we have already initiated a really large undertaking. The U.S. Secret Service did a kickoff meeting. When a national special security event is named, the U.S. Secret Service becomes kind of like the lead federal organization, along with the FBI and FEMA, to start initiating comprehensive planning processes. And this year they've kicked it off, and we've already embarked on what will be the main focus in 2024, which is establishing a large amount of work committees, subgroups, that focus on basically the A to Z in safety, security, consequence, and crisis management. And so if any, that would be a good example of like the one key point from a safety and security standpoint I would want you all to walk away with, which is it's going to be an all hands on deck, and we've already started it. So, John?
Sure, thanks, Kevin. I'll try to be brief. I don't know if I can sum it to just one because we have so much, but I do want to point out a couple things. One, that we have regular meetings with the City of LA, Metro, LA Sports and Entertainment Commission. We have monthly meetings along with LA 28. And so I think this is probably a first for such regular coordinated meetings and collaboration. And I think that's really important because it also helps us to understand each other's organizations and how we work and how to get things done. And, you know, it seems new to me. I'm newer to the county, but it seems like it's working and being very beneficial. So I want to point that out. I want to point out, too, when we look at our contract cities and our operational agreement, we know that there's sometimes inefficiencies. And, for example, our fire team has individual agreements with several venues, and that might not be practical when we start looking at the scale and all these events that are coming into play for the region. And so we might look for opportunities to consolidate to be more efficient with our contracting and behind the back of house operations. So we're looking at that. And then one more last thing is we are in the process of procuring a consultant to help us work on an economic impact study, but also to hear from community-based organizations and regional stakeholders to get input and feedback. And earlier it was mentioned about innovation, but making sure we're hearing the voices and where innovation is. And so we're going to be working with that consultant over the summer, and this fall we'll be issuing another update to the board on the findings of that. And so we are, as Kevin mentioned, sleeves rolled up and working on this on the regular basis. And I'm actually expanding some of, right now it's been myself and one person, but we're adding a couple more people to the bench to really help us dig in deeper on this. So I think that would be that we're into it.
Thank you. I think that the thing I'd want folks to take away is that we both need to have big vision here, and we need to plan. And we have 4 years now, which is some time, not maybe as much time as we need, but it is some time. And so for us, we need to set ambitious goals that make sure that this isn't a one-time flash in the pan, but this is an opportunity for economic stimulus for our entire community, and especially those that have been historically disinvested or left out of past Olympics and moments like this. And so I'll say over the next 4 years, it's making sure that we set those goals and find ways to communicate our impact over time, and then get busy building reaching our community and building capacity. So One of the things I didn't get to mention is that even this summer, we're investing $25 million of American Rescue Plan Act and Care First Community Investment dollars in building the capacity of our nonprofit and small business community, from education to technical assistance to capital in folks' pockets so they can do what they do best. And so we're going to continue to do that in partnership, whether it's inspired by infrastructure, the infrastructure bill, major investments like LA 28 and opportunities, and just sort of the commitment of the board and our county to more equitable economy. So thank you.
Thank you. I would co-sign everything that's been said this far. I would probably just want to make sure I would sort of shift the mindset from thinking of this as this is something that's going to happen in 2028. This is something that we are already in, but really is at minimum, this is a 4-year program. Because we have the rarity of LA and Paris being named at the same time, which has never happened before, really was an 8-year program, but we had a little something called COVID. And so at this point, I would think of this as a 4-year program. When that torch is passed to us in September, all eyes are on us. What are you doing? What's happening? All eyes are already on us. Communities are asking us, where are you? Where do you? So planning is critical, but I wouldn't think of this as we're planning for something that's going to happen in 2028. The other reason I say that is because initiatives, I think about cultural initiatives, a cultural Olympiad, those things are allowed to begin once that torch passes. So you can have a 4-year program. And as we think about capacity building, which is so important, building infrastructure, access, we can have initiatives to leverage what our departments all already have, the programs we already have, leverage those, and then be planning on how we're going to increase the resources, especially for initiatives leading up to this. So I hope to do the same for arts and culture, but it will take additional resources. And I think even to John's point, a lot of us are doing this on top of what we already do. And our colleagues at the city that we partner closely with, and we partner with LA 28 and others. So there will need to be more of a ramp up. And I think just voicing that because it's a lot, and it really is a 4-year program, but thinking about what the legacy of it, build that from the beginning. So start with what you want to see at the end, and building that from the beginning, I think, are the things I would say.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Chair Parent for any Q&A.
Hi, everyone. Lori Bettison-Varga, Natural History Museum. I'm so excited to have a panel talking about the Olympics. One thing I want to say is an opportunity is I hear all of you talking about youth development. And I really want to make sure that we're not just talking about the kind of what we think about with athletic careers or opportunities and equity and access, but also about the wide variety of STEM careers that relate to athletics and also to arts and culture. So I want to make sure that we're not leaving that out. I see myself as just one of the departments that is involved in STEM, and I'm sure that ISD and public health and all of the other entities that are related to that would be interested in participating, because we know that there are, shoe and equipment designers and sports medicine, trainers, engineers, all sorts of opportunities for people to be related to the sports arena, and I think our kids need to know about that.
Thank you. I totally agree. I think I would even go further than that. Is these are obviously sports events, and so we made a point of saying that there's we're going beyond events to being a sports entertainment industry, cluster and capital. But beyond that, there's almost every industry and sector is touched by the Olympics. So we're going to have massive hiring in construction, in operations and maintenance, in hospitality and retail and transit services and beyond. And so making sure that folks see the interconnectedness of all of these sectors and putting on major events like this, and that our young adults have access to exposure, career development, work experiences that support their entry in. So I totally agree. Thank you, Lori.
And I also totally agree and thank you. And you're you're not just one of the little departments. I love everybody so humble. Yes, you all are critical to this, all of you, and hope for great collaborations. I think one of the both opportunities and challenges of this is that we're really trying to make collaborations and coordination and alignment region-wide, county-wide, but also region-wide with everybody. And so we're kind of thinking, how do we have almost not controlled chaos, but how do we build sort of a structure underneath so that there can almost be vectors and nodes of different kinds of activities, as well as in different areas across the county. So youth development or career pathways, those are huge opportunities for us across every aspect, but definitely arts and culture and sports. And entertainment and tech and all the things. And a lot of great models. I was just at the National Endowment for the Arts on a special panel there for the 2025 Osaka World Expo, and selecting artists for that, and the State Department was with us. And so talking to them, I'm hoping to cast a very wide net of what culture is. So having the cultural program include things like culinary, include things like the youth kind of ambassador programs and things like that can be done for large events where youth are essentially hired to be almost like docents. And, there's a lot of great opportunities. And the only other thing I want to add on this point is when we think about the legacy, and can't remember if it was Deloitte perhaps who mentioned, but the 84 games, there was the incredible legacy of outfunding what it cost and then creating LA 84, the foundation, as one of the outcomes. So it is my hope, and hopefully we'll go beyond hope, that we could have something similar here if we're able to garner enough funds that there can be, again, a fund or a foundation that remains to build on all of the legacy and the infrastructure we build, and that can support not only youth sports, but youth access to arts and culture, and perhaps other aspects, since the benefits are so high for our young people, and that it will be focused not only on City of LA, but really focused region-wide on LA County would be really critical to me.
Thank you, Ruben. Hi, Commissioner. Commissioner Marcia Mitchell from QPC. I have a comment, and then I also have a question. My comment is, like Susan, I too remember the '84 Olympics. I'm from South Los Angeles, and one of the most important things that I remember is, one, many of my friends got locked up that summer, but then many of my friends also got great jobs for the first time through the Olympics, leading to, as what Kelly was saying, paths of, career paths. So my question to the panel is, how will you engage nonprofits and CBOs to do what Susan said, which is, one, do no harm, but also the other aspirational path of making sure that we leave LA in a better place after these games? How do we work with nonprofits and CBOs to make sure that happens?
So I think first off, as part of our coordination in the CEO's office, and you had presented those concerns to me before, and so I have spoken with Sheriff, and we've talked about some proactive ways and involvement with the community. And so as we engage the consultant I mentioned a few minutes ago, that consultant will be reaching out to the CBOs, and that will be a topic, and we'll have the Sheriff and team engaged so that out of that we can come up with some feedback and high-level thoughts of what their long-term plan and how to address it. So that is definitely on the radar front and center.
Thank you. I think it's a great question. Our department, we see nonprofits, our community-based organizations, as not only sort of an agent of delivering our services, but a customer of ours as well, because they have critical connections with our community. And so part of our hope over the next 4 years is to continue to build their capacity too, not just small businesses so that they can contract with the county or the venues, but build the capacity of our community serving organizations. One of the things I said was a priority at the beginning was making sure folks know how to participate in the Olympics and any other sort of event in the sports entertainment world. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to think across our region, not just our public agencies and private sector partners, but our community-based organizations too, to make sure that folks understand how to get jobs, how to participate in events, how to find support if there are issues, and that they see themselves as part of this process. This isn't just a thing to grab onto or try to find that initial connect or react to, but really see themselves as part of the Olympics and as part of what we hope the benefit of the Olympics is.
And then I was just going to build on something John brought up that I think is important is, and not to reflect as a comparison on the 84 games, but we have a strong public safety partnership with LA28. They have a public safety organization within them that helps balance the governmental organizations that are coming with public safety and emergency management constructs. And I also think that every year going on, something Kelly brought up earlier about how we have major sports events, major concerts every year. I don't think that, or we are leveraging best practices every time we go into those events. So the public safety and emergency management continuum we kind of structure around now is much different than when it was, even 15, 10 years ago. And we just continue to build on that. And that's our objective moving forward, is every year that we go through these events is having a more effective engagement with not just the public safety organizations from government, but then also the partners that are the hosts of those events.
And I would only add that from my perspective, I hope we have a holistic view of this. So sitting where I sit with arts and culture, for example, there's been data that shows that communities that have a high proportion of cultural resources, artists that live there, programs that are funded there, arts organizations that are there, things like that, have better outcomes statistically in educational attainment, health outcomes, lower diabetes and other health issues, and better public safety. So it's not just, do I go to the arts event myself? It's also what it means to have a healthy community and to have activities for our young people as well that hopefully keep them out of the justice system in the first place. So I hope that we can have a holistic view where no matter what department we're in, whether we're sheriff or arts and culture, we understand the logistics and the sort of security aspects of what's happening and those kind of goals, but we also all share in the same goals that our ultimate outcome is leaving our folks and our communities better off, that it's also civic pride, that it's also deep inclusion and joy, really, in access. And so I think the more we can think holistically in that way, we may be able to also try to affect more of a culture change from within, as well as Rambo's comments earlier of helping the community understand what we're doing. Because so much of the county is equity focused, really deeply, passionately. And so having more of that bridge, I think, is helpful as we go forward. And the last thing I'll just say on this point is, we already are doing work like partnering with the Department of Mental Health or Health Services or Probation or Office of Child Protection to invest millions of dollars, often state juvenile justice dollars or mental health dollars, into, for our work, arts education as a healing-centered modality for youth that are in the foster system, in the justice system, and as a prevention mechanism in partnership with parks. So the next 4 years, again, real opportunity to build on that holistically as part of our preparation and beyond.
Hello? Hello? Over here? Hi. My name is Joe Green. I'm the co-chair of the LA County Commission on HIV. And I'm very excited to be looking at how we are all going to be involved in the Olympics. But one of the things that I'm thinking about is, as we, those of us that are co-chairs of various commissions, and we read our land acknowledgement each time, I'm wondering what we are going to be doing for the indigenous and the Native American peoples 4 years from now, so we don't look back and say, we've been reading this land acknowledgement for 4 years, we're doing a great Olympics, what have we done for this population? So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you.
Thank you. And
I'll
Kristen?
only just say I definitely view that as a very significant aspect of inclusion as we go forward, because we know that Native communities are not just a thing of the past, right? We're talking about the past, present, and tomorrow. And so how will our Native communities be not only uplifted and recognized, but also involved, engaged as part of contracting and others. And I cannot speak for, but we have the LA City County Native American Indian Commission, which has its own commission and its own self-governance board, but is housed within the Department of Arts and Culture. So I'm sure they are really open to having conversations with any department around this topic.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you to our panel. And I'm going to hand it over back to Chair Parent